last week when hooked to a lie detector, Stugotz admitted at the provocation of Billy that he didn't want Pablo to be in our company.
Provocation's a strong word.
I don't like that word.
It was more of an inquisition.
What's it mean?
Exactly.
You asked Big Joe Harper whether or not to ask Stugotz or to measure Stugotz when he was asked, are you happy that Pablo has joined the company? And Stugotz at that moment was boxed in. He could say, yes, he's happy, and then have it be called a lie. He got out in front of it and just said, no, I'm not happy. And it was the rare showing of Joe Harper's machine went, that's the truth. That's the only truth Stugotz has spoken. Mm-hmm. He was totally boxed in. But Pablo
Thanks for pointing it out.
Pablo is a loser. He coined the term, the process, coined it. Took a victory lap. I invented the term, trust the process. And he continues to celebrate and support and say that Hinkie and Embiid, and yesterday, in one of the weirdest flex of all time, that a part of that process, Ben Simmons would show you that he was drinking wine while watching television when he was Ben Simmons. Then he's taunting the Sixers. This is the group and the bunch of losers that Pablo celebrates, is associated with more than any other. How do you defend yourself today, public loser who works for Meadowlark Media, even though none of us know what he's presently doing?
Well, first off, your many questions about what I'm doing presently are answered by my hat. www.pablo.show. I'm wearing a hat on YouTube and in life. Look, Dan, what do you want me to do? What kind of penance do you want me to pay? I listened to what you guys just did in the last segment and already became furious because there are things I want to admit to getting very wrong. There are other things that nobody, despite me talking about this subject at length for, I don't know, almost a decade, that they still fail to understand very basically. So where should we start? Can we start with the game? Should we start with tanking? Should we start with choking? What are we doing here? Should I be eating?
I'll start here.
On
I'll
camera
start.
for you.
The MVP of the league is Julius Randle. He's 10 points worse in the postseason.
Okay, so thank you for leaving the tanking stuff to the side and the Sam Hinkie stuff to the side, because this story is about two things. Yes, tanking, but more than that, it's about what it means to choke. And these are related, okay? I'm taking off my hat because I want to make a serious point here. The reason this story is about tanking and choking and they're related is because it's about what happens when you live a life that is determined exclusively by what happens in the playoffs, okay? It's about what happens when you fetishize a championship so much that you basically have a panic attack every time you play in a Game 7. And so Joel Embiid, for everybody, just so you understand this, Sam Hinkie resigned, was ousted by the NBA in 2016. Joel Embiid is the process. And what is so painful, there's a great gap between everybody on ESPN even talking about, oh, the process is dead. What Sixers fans are actually worried about is Joel Embiid, the guy who nicknamed himself the process, who had a choke job that is indefensible. And he did it alongside another guy who also was choking. And it's a problem if you can't tell who the other guy is when James Harden and Doc Rivers both meet that same description at the same time. So yeah, it was bad. Joel Embiid, to me, the question is, why is it? Why is Sixers fan in the modern always about rooting for people to stop panicking? Hyper talented all-time talents. Why can't they get out of their head when it matters the most? While the guy across from you, Jason Tatum, is having the greatest game literally of his life. Why is it that we are cursed to that? That is what I am struggling with today, and I have been for about 6 years in a row.
Correct me if I'm wrong, okay? As the face of trust the process, and it's okay to be a loser and fail on purpose as long as you can get all the assets that make you valuable, and then you get the assets. And hey, look, it's Ben Simmons. He short circuits. And hey, look, Markelle Fultz, and he short circuits. And the best we can do with number one is Emeka Okafor and Joel Embiid. And look, Game 7, he short circuits.
Jaleel, that's a fine.
Mm-hmm.
Forgive me.
Yeah.
Another fine?
Yeah, they got
It fell apart at Fultz. They should have taken Tatum there. If they had Tatum, imagine what this team would be like with Tatum and then Embiid.
Can I just point something out, though, for you guys? So, again, Sam Hinkie, ousted by the NBA, who deems his experiment too dangerous, largely because I wrote a story about it explaining what he was actually up to, that he did not want to participate in. All of that is true. Okay, I am. Dean was right about me on that front, both fronts, the sound and the theory. What Sam Hinkie, okay, was doing was something that, of course, I believe is a good idea. But what happened is he lost his job, and then 5 other GMs. Brian Colangelo, Jerry Colangelo, Brett Brown, Elton Brand, Daryl Morey came in, and nobody wants to talk about the fact that Sam Hinkie didn't draft Markelle Fultz. Sam Hinkie didn't draft Ben Simmons. Sam Hinkie had 2.5 years. And so, yes, Dan, I understand. Assets is the key to this, and the key to the process, of course, was what happens when you actually take incentives at face value. When a sport is telling you all that matters is the postseason, how do you build a team? He leaned into it harder than anybody else you've ever seen, at least before Sam Presti is doing the same thing in Oklahoma City without any of the backlash. But I digress. The point is,
you can't wait, Pablo. You can't. You're forming an argument right now to trust the process, and you're just highlighting the process's failures. Yeah, they should have drafted Tatum instead. They didn't. And you know what? They still found a way to get Jimmy Butler on the roster. And they still gave a huge max to Ben Simmons. They had something to show for it. They've had the stars there to carry it over, and they've just chosen guys like Tobias Harris instead of Jimmy Butler. The process is an unmitigated failure because you can just hold up who's in the Eastern Conference right now, who's in the Eastern Conference Finals right now. In the span that the process has started, the Miami Heat have gone back to the Eastern Conference Finals with their third core during that span, but second different core, devoid of assets, devoid of cap room to even sign Jimmy Butler, having to have a trade in place with the Sixers for Jimmy Butler. The Heat have tanked once in their history. It resulted in Michael Beasley.
Bucket getter.
They are a testament to why you don't go about things the way that Philadelphia did, almost as much as Philadelphia is.
But Pablo is the face of loser today because choosing losing to lose is the most pathetic kind of losing.
But it's also choosing losing because you care so much about the only winning that everybody agrees matters. And by the way, seeing Juju smile in a Celtics jersey in the back row is very triggering to me as well. Even more triggering than Mike in his glasses and his winter beanie and his beard.
Pablo, seeing you in that hat was triggering. Boy, don't you ever put that hat on top of them headphones again like that ever again. Salute to you. I love you.
I can't believe
little Fred McGriff is stacking the.
I cannot believe.
Can I talk about Mike's point though?
But I cannot. You just spun it, Pablo. You just spun it like to hate losing so much that you'll commit yourself to losing at the lowest possible level. No. Hating to lose means you do what the Miami Heat did. Ignore losing. Ignore tanking.
You mean exist on South Beach such that free agents actually just want to hang out as opposed to an advantage?
You just got James Harden by circumventing the salary cap.
Yes, because you had to do it every other way but the way that is most available to luxury locations. Okay, the point about why this made sense is not that okay there are other ways to do it. It's that when you take over a team, you're dealt a hand. You inherit a hand from the guy behind you. Sam Hinkie inherited Arnett Moultrie and a bunch of stuff. Okay, and the question was, how do you get from there to what they actually got to despite bungling every other major decision? To your point, right? Not getting Tatum, actually giving away Jimmy Butler because you wanted Tobias Harris. These are embarrassing, humiliating moves. No question about it. They messed up the draft so many different ways, okay? But the point is, when you have 6 years of a 50-win team, one of the 4 best teams in the East, and you have the literal MVP of the league, at this point, it's not actually about the process, the front office strategy from 2013. It's about the players. And to me, everyone who roots for the Sixers, who really watches this team, is thinking to themselves, does Joel Embiid have the goods? Everybody who has gone from nerd rooting for front office has become caveman sports radio guy because we watched Joel Embiid look terrified. And my voice is also going to do the thing that Dan's did in the last segment. It's really hard to not get deeply emotional about somebody who you feel almost paternalistic towards. I know he can be better. I want him to be better. Prologue does not need to be passed, okay? All of these things are true, and yet it's the same thing. It's the same fucking thing with Joel Embiid, and that is the process. The process is Joel Embiid. This whole thing lives and dies based on whether he actually is as good as his all-time talent would suggest. And right now, the answer is no. If you wanted that answer from me, you got it. The answer right now is no. I have no evidence that he's not going to do the opposite of what Jason Tatum does every time they meet in a Game 7.
Billy?
I mean, I don't know what's going on here. Why you're acting like Philadelphia is this place nobody wants to go to, and it's like this town that no one will ever go to. Need I remind you that's where the Declaration of Independence was signed? That's where this great country was started when there was nothing.
Yep.
You can't sign some basketball players, please.
The Rocky statue.
And Pablo,
Liberty Bell.
You cited a bunch of examples for the Heat that were trades. They weren't actual free agent acquisitions. In fact, the free agent acquisition was P.J. Tucker, who left Miami for Philadelphia.
Boom.
We're really going to parse the nuances of sign-in trades.
No, and we're not
really
going
to do
we're
here.
not going to do tampering. But what I am going to parse here is Stephen A. Smith on television, journalistic voice on television, saying seriously and telling everybody, I'm dead serious about this. James Harden needs to shave his beard in order to hide his identity, so that people won't know who he is after that game.
Have you guys Google image James Harden without a beard?
Yes, you don't recognize him. He is not an MVP. He's a guy that doesn't look like he can dominate a basketball game with 45 points. And Stephen A. Smith's serious analysis of that, after he finishes with disappointed, quiet Knicks voice, is to seriously suggest that James Harden has to go into witness protection, but can do it by just shaving his beard to change his identity, to hide from the failure.
That's why he's one of the all-time greats.
It
Dan.
is fairly amazing to be someone who doesn't believe in the idea of choke, and to see an entire franchise crumble under the weight of it, with a coach, with a Harden, with an Embiid, with a Simmons.
It's incredible.
It's unbelievable.
Dan, there's nothing like this in sports, and I know choking exists in various ways at various levels with various examples, right? But there is nothing like the Sixers post-process, I'll call it, experience, where Joel Embiid and James Harden and Doc Rivers are all now infamously and objectively, undeniably, the last people you want on your team when it comes to the games that matter most, that we all have learned only matter. And it's psychologically, it's really, really painful. It's so painful to know that they could be better, that we could all be better, but your mind won't stop letting you shit a California king-size bed. It's an incredible experience that I would find even more fascinating if I wasn't also feeling it in my pants in the same way.
Yeah, you're a failure and a loser. He's Pablo Torre, Metal Arch star hire.